All right, welcome to a special edition of The Elephant in the Room with Bradley Devlin. I, of course, am Bradley Devlin, and we are in collaboration with the Electoral College Network. And with me today is Tony Kinnett. Kinnett to win it. Tony Kinnett doing everything with the bracket, knows all you need to know about it. Tony, where are we leading up to the finals?
Well, we are in perhaps one of the greatest matchups in conservative media Twitter history. You have the MAGA man himself versus the Hebrew Hammer going head-to-head in the finals, and it has been an incredible road getting here. I mean, we have the officials region and all of the crazy Texas versus Trump stuff going on over there. You have the right-wing organizations and the incredible Cinderella story, lone conservative slammed down by the Daily Wire patriarchy. You have Ben Shapiro doing what Ben Shapiro does, and that is dominate the right-wing commentators. And you have the comfortably smug slide through the wild card region only to be smacked down by Shapiro in the final four. It's an incredible time.
All right, Tony, let's take a look at our bracket thus far. Right now, it seems as if Ben Shapiro might have a good shot at beating Donald Trump just because, it has been utter domination. Okay, let's look at his numbers in the Sweet 6 quarantine. Ben Shapiro beating Michael Knowles 66% to 34%, an absolute smackdown, as you call him, the Hebrew Hammer. Then we go to the Elitist 8. Ben Shapiro, again, 67.2 to Greg Gutfeld's 32.8. And then on to the Final Four, where Ben Shapiro beats Comfortably Smug by wider margins than both Gutfeld and Michael Knowles, winning 73.3% of the votes, with Comfortably Smug only getting 26.7% of the votes. I never thought I'd live to see this day. It is absolutely crazy how bad Ben Shapiro brought it on Comfortably Smug. I would not have thought the Minions would have let this happen, but alas, they did. Tony, your thoughts?
Well, it was a really incredible match because, of course, Comfortably Smug was the number one prediction to win the entire poll other than Ben Shapiro or Donald Trump. And going into this matchup, Comfortably Smug had actually been throwing all of his support behind organizations that were people that were going against Ben Shapiro. He was throwing massive amounts of votes in for Michael Knowles, then massive amounts of votes in for Greg Gutfeld. And you saw all of these campaigns that Comfortably Smug was attempting to back. He actually came out a few days ago, tweeted that it was time to wreck some polls. Everyone knew it was about to get serious. He had just come off of a massive poll campaign where they were trying to wreck the which song would be playing in hell, the This Is My Fight song poll. And now coming into this bracket, Comfortably Smug up against Ben Shapiro. The reason that I think that Shapiro came away with a 73.3% victory to a 26.7% of Smug is that Shapiro came back from Shabbat and noticed that he was down by about 20 to 30 points. In fact, it was a very wide margin. Everyone was kind of yucking it up. Everyone was saying the lib has been taken down. There were enough memes to coat the inside of a junior hire's locker. And then Shapiro comes forward and he throws some retweets down. He's like, I can't believe this lib is winning. And just like that, the turns tabled. And you saw all of these tens of thousands of votes just start streaming in. And once that momentum was there, it was just unstoppable. It was truly incredible. Ben Shapiro and Comfortably Smug were smacking each other in Cassie Dillon's mentions. It was a particularly wild day of voting. And for a total vote tally of about 86,352, I'd say we haven't seen a bracket head-to-head like that in a very, very long time.
Now, Tony, tell me, so that was the vote count of just the Smug versus Ben Shapiro matchup, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so what were the vote tallies of the other matchups that we saw? Was this way above our usual total in terms of votes, or as this thing has gotten closer to the end, have we seen an increase in the amount of votes per matchup?
To give you a little bit of a counter, the President Donald Trump versus Daily Wire matchup only received 46,000 votes, almost even. And then comparatively, in order to get to the Sweet 6 quarantine, those votes were down near the 20,000s. So there definitely is a ramp up. Everyone is looking towards the end of this bracket, the end of right-wing madness. And everyone was waiting to see the Shapiro and Smug matchup. Everyone was waiting to see if the Minions could literally go to war against Ben Shapiro and come out on top. And we found out that that wasn't the case.
And really, okay, now I'm looking at the left side of the bracket, right? We've got the Daily Wire going up against Donald Trump in the Final Four after they beat Lone Conservative, who made an outstanding run to the Elite Eight. I mean, people were trolling. Tony was one of the architects of this bracket. People were trolling us that we included our own network inside the bracket. Guys, it's a prank. It's a prank. Get over it. Tony and I debriefed this in full on the latest episode of The Elephant in the Room with Bradley Dublin. Go listen to it on iTunes, on Google Play, on Spotify and SoundCloud, and wherever else you can find your podcast. We'll do a whole breakdown of that. But do you really feel like any organization that was going up against Donald Trump in the Final Four, I mean, it was like sending a lamb to slaughter?
Honestly, I think it's funny the way that the right-wing organizations ended up going against the officials. Really, just depending on who the official is that's going to be coming out of that region, organizations already kind of have a handicap. They don't really have a face to reckon with. They don't usually have a personality that's running that social media account. Usually that's a combined effort. The Daily Wire is obviously allied with Ben Shapiro and the rest of his group. And groups like the Lone Conservative, we obviously have Cassie Dillon, we have Patrick Hoff, we obviously have you, Bradley, we have a couple others. And so we're dealing with a lot of things here that are going on where, it's kind of hard to put a faceless organization up against a political official and come out swinging. But I think what people are really missing here is just how incredible it was that Donald Trump made it out of his region. He went up against Texas every single round except for Marco Rubio in the first. He went up against Greg Abbott. He went up against Dan Crenshaw. And then he went up against Ted Cruz. The dude fought Texas 3 times and won. And that is no small feat.
I'm looking at the numbers now. Not only did Donald Trump beat Texas in every single round, I mean, he beat them handily. They say don't mess with Texas. Well, President Donald Trump is getting nearly or eclipsing 60% of the total votes in each round after the Sweet 16, or the Sweet 6 quarantine, as we're calling it. I mean, he beats, Representative Dan Crenshaw, 59.7% to 40.3. Then he goes on to beat Ted Cruz 64.2% to 35.8, which I thought was a blowout that I wasn't expecting. I thought Ted Cruz would perform. I thought Ted Cruz was going to perform much, much better up against the president. And then you go into the Final Four round where President Donald Trump, I mean, just walks away with it, 66.2% to the Daily Wire's 33.8%. We are tossing the bracket up for you to see the final results. We are in with a CNN breaking news election update. Tony, give us the numbers so far now that we're 30 minutes into the polling for the final round.
So currently, as we are right at the outset of the first quarter, we're taking a look here that Ben Shapiro is currently leading a 55.8% lead to Donald Trump's 44.2%. What you're noticing here as far as voting trends are concerned is that Ben is slightly losing his lead. So Donald Trump is gaining pretty handedly, I might say. And over the next few hours, especially as a lot of the boomers are going to be getting home from their evening activities, and especially as you get out into the middle of the country in the central time zone, then mountain, and then, of course, Pacific, you're going to see a lot more of the elderly, the boomers, the MAGA folks log on, type in their ancient Twitter passwords, and really put in a lot of votes for Donald Trump into this bracket. Whereas the millennials who've been following this bracket, the Gen Z kids, you've already seen a large amount of votes here. And I think that as soon as Ben Shapiro inevitably retweets this, those numbers are going to go rather handedly. I think that the only way that Donald Trump comes away with a victory at this point, even so early out to call, has to be a retweet. We need to see a retweet from someone either in the Trump family. We need to see some type of retweet from some major MAGA figure, or from, of course, the MAGA man himself. So, Brad, that's kind of my prediction. That's what we're looking at right now. We're seeing 55 to 44, about 1.5 thousand votes in, and a lot of interesting conversation happening in the comments below.
Here's what I'm looking at. Okay, I'm seeing Ben Shapiro has obviously been very active in the bracket. Donald Trump has not. Donald Trump's got some other stuff going on, as you may have heard, which is why we're all doing this from our home studios, and I'm not up at school on my own desk doing the podcast twice a week. That's why we're bringing you all sorts of new content just like this so that you can enjoy it while you yourself might be stuck at home, might be stuck with family members that you don't necessarily like hanging out with all that much. That's all right. Toss in your AirPods, listen to us break down this bracket. And I think something that I have been mulling over, does Comfortably Smug purposefully throw out his opportunity to beat Ben Shapiro in order for Donald Trump to take him down and throw his support behind there? Now, as you mentioned, Comfortably Smug has been throwing his support behind each opponent that Ben Shapiro has faced, with the fun banter that goes on between Smug and Ben Shapiro himself. But do you think that Comfortably Smug has used up all of his clout before throwing his support behind Donald Trump, if he does? And what are the prospects for Donald Trump to make a move if Comfortably Smug jumps in on his behalf?
I think you're asking a really interesting question here. And to answer this rather well, we need to take a look at Smug's tweeting habits within the last week and a half. So Smug in the last week and a half really became active in watching the bracket. We can tell based on likes and sub replies. Basically at the outset of the second round, after he beat Ben McDonald, after he was up against Pradip Shankar, we were actually able to see that he started tracking this bracket. So he was already making plans in how he was going to be going against Ben Shapiro. It wasn't until Morgan, of course, MJ, the wizard, ended up going against Smug that he started taking a more active role. At this point, Smug, instead of vying for his own importance, people in the comments of his own tweets were starting to direct his attention and therefore their support towards getting Smug through this bracket, which, come on. He's number one seed in the wild card bracket for a reason. He's incredibly powerful as far as a voting presence is considered. I think that what you need to keep in mind, though, is that I do think you really hit an important nugget of truth. Smug wasted some of his clout. He wasted some of the rallying of the minions far too early in this tournament. I mean, telling people to vote for Knowles over Shapiro, in what world are you going to convince people to vote for Michael, the cream of Catholics, against Ben Shapiro, the Hebrew Hammer, the cool guy's philosopher, you might say? I really wouldn't see it happening. And so by the time that Smug seems to be throwing out his fourth tweet, trying to rally everyone for Greg Gutfeld against Shapiro, which was a very interesting rally, you think at that point he would be stoking people to vote for him. Wait till we get our hands on him, he might say. Wait until we show him what a lib can be, etc. Instead, he throws it away with Greg. You almost never see that kind of choking from a number one seed in a tournament like this. Usually you see that from the 3 seeds, the 4 seeds. You see this from UNC. You see this from Berkeley. You may see this from Texas, but you never see this kind of choking come away from a number one seed like Comfortably Smug. And then he gets up near Shapiro and he starts out. He starts bickering with Ben Shapiro. It rallies a little bit of support. And you see this initial lead, but I think that Cassie Dillon's statement rings very true, that they had better have built a comfortable lead by the time that Ben came back from Shabbat on Saturday. And I don't think that lead was comfortable enough. And by that time, it was just too late. The rally grew thin and Smug ended up slipping on his own ego. For a tournament of the libs, I think that Smug isn't going to have that look at the end of the day.
And what I thought was particularly interesting is that Smug didn't have to rally any of his own support to get all the way to the Final Four. I mean, he beats Neon Taster pretty handedly, even though Neon Taster was a phenomenal seed coming out of the wild card bracket. I mean, Neon Taster, I believe, even though he was was he a number 2 seed there? Yeah, he was a number 2 seed. Even then, I think we were undervaluing the presence that Neon Taster could have had in this bracket if he wasn't, of course, sharing the same lower right-hand quadrant as Comfortably Smug. So Comfortably Smug spends no energy. He spends all of his energy early on trying to get Ben Shapiro knocked out of his tournament. I think it would have been a phenomenal troll. I think it would have been a phenomenal troll if Comfortably Smug decided that, you know what, it hasn't worked with getting Ben Shapiro out of this bracket. I'm just going to pull a JT LOL and say I forfeit. screw it, you have the final. We're going to wait for you to get smacked down.
So for those of you who haven't been following, JT LOL forfeited at the beginning of the tournament. And even so, after beating Stephen Kent, was complaining about his victory later on in the polls. He was confused. He seemed a little bit perturbed. Usually you don't see JT LOL get all of that flustered. But he very clearly didn't want to be in the tournament and ended up getting slaughtered by MJ's libertarian crowd to move on. But I think the real Cinderella story of the wild card region has to be AG Conservative. I mean, you see taking down Matt's Idea Shop at number 3. I mean, that is an incredible line of takedown for a 6 seed over a 3. Not something that I was expecting. Certainly, Matt has had a little bit of trouble since the division canceled his original team and he had to rebrand as Matt Sports Shop. But AG Conservative pulled out a very excellent-handed and close victory to go on and face Neon Taster in the Sweet 6 quarantine.
Yeah, I thought definitely that Comfortably Smug just kind of pulling a JTLL, forfeiting, and then, throwing his own hammer down against Ben Shapiro by throwing his weight behind Donald Trump without expending all of that clout early on in the bracket would have been a better way for him to go. But let's talk about, you mentioned some of those upsets with Matt's Idea Shop going down by AG Conservative. I want to talk about some other upsets that I found specifically surprising. Let's talk about 3 different events that or results that came out of the organizations bracket. I'm talking about the Daily Caller beating the National Review, Lone Conservative beating the Heritage Foundation and going all the way to the Final Four, and ACC beating YAF. Tony, give me your thoughts on those upsets coming out of the organizations bracket. Definitely the most tumultuous bracket out of the 4 quadrants.
Well, when it comes to the organizations bracket, what you have to remember is that the right tweet at the right time can turn an entire bracket around. And the more people you have involved in an organization's overall campaign in that game, the more people that are going to come out and vote for your organization. It's all about initial exposure, building that momentum above your opponent. And that's definitely what we saw in the Daily Caller upset of the National Review. The National Review just didn't really have anyone fighting for it. And when you don't have anyone that's really getting in there and getting it broadcasted, it was very easy for people like Greg Price, like Lindsay Wygo, like the other Daily Caller aficionados to sweep in as stars of the game and push them over. It was a very well fought victory. Of course, seeing Lone Conservative beat Heritage was kind of the same story. Lone Conservative often doesn't get a lot of credit for the amount of contributors and the amount of social media presence that it has compared to some of the other organizations. The Lone Conservative definitely has contributors, has columnists in so many of the different organizations that we have quite a wide reach overall. So when it comes time to share a poll, the individual members of the Lone Conservative are able to reach a lot of those minutia groups that may not see the National Review or may not see Heritage or may not see the ACC. And I think that's something that really comes to bear here. However, when it comes to the organizations bracket 2020, you have to talk about the ACC YAF upset. I mean, my goodness, to see YAF with its incredible roster of speakers go up against this ragtag team of climate-loving ACC group kids, and to see ACC come out and win, it was incredible. It was a nail biter down to the last second. You had Benji Backer coming out and retweeting left and right. You had everyone basically rallying on this huge scale to try to beat YAF. And then also you had YAF responding. You actually had people from YAF stepping forward. You had Kevin McMahon bringing out the big guns to try to support YAF over the ACC lead. And it got closer and closer. But by the end of it, it was a done deal. And when ACC pulled off that upset, I realized that a lot of this stuff was still very so much up in the air.
Yeah, looking at the turmoil coming out of the organization side of the bracket, I think that you hit on something really, really important. And it's that the Daily Caller with Lindsay Wygo and Greg Price and Logan Hall had some, I guess you would call them B-listers in the conservative movement who do some fantastic work. Obviously, go read their stuff. Go see what they're doing on the Daily Caller social media. It's fantastic. And then you have National Review, right? One of the most established names in the entirety of the conservative movement. The fact that Lindsey Wygo and Greg Price and Logan Hall weren't on the bracket themselves meant that the only dog that they had in the fight to rally around was their home network, the Daily Caller. And I think that's why it was of great use to them, and that's why they were able to go over the line with the National Review. Also, I think that the failure to include from the outset, right? We talked about this, that, you a lot of the folks over at Lone Conservative just kind of sat down and said, like, yeah, this would be a fun little joke, fun activity to do while we're all stuck in quarantine, and let's just throw some names up there and see if we can get some interaction. And it's turned into something completely different, where now me and you are doing a full 25-minute show on what's transpired. But I think that the failure to include a lot of National Review thinkers in the commentators' side meant that there wasn't a lot of interest from the National Review from the outset.
We have a result that Michael Knowles has just retweeted the bracket, which I believe you will see a large shift in about 3 to 5% in the lead and decline here. The thing is that Michael Knowles, while a lot of his fans do enjoy Ben Shapiro, are very, very big mega fans. And I think that if Andrew Klavan retweets this, as well as Michael Knowles, you can actually see the percentages shift in favor of Trump as opposed to Shapiro, which would be quite the interesting flip-flop.
That update is very, very worthwhile, because obviously Andrew Klavan, Michael Knowles, Ben Shapiro, three of the talents over at the Daily Wire, might be actually undermining the Daily Wire's capability to take home a W as an organization, with Ben Shapiro winning the final, because Michael Knowles and Andrew Klavan's subscribership or their followings are much more MAGA heavy, much more MAGA centric than Ben Shapiro. I mean, that would be some poetic justice for Ben Shapiro after threatening to fire Michael Knowles every day for the last 3 years. And I will say, though, it is very possible that we might see some figures who were included in the bracket early on who experienced early exits, like maybe Charlie Kirk, like maybe some more pro-MAGA figures maybe get involved and retweet the bracket, and that could be one of those MAGA Trump circle figures that helps the president push it over the line, right? There is no electoral college to save him here. It is all popular vote, and we are very curious to see how it's turning out.
That is an incredible observation and quite the prediction. The idea that Charlie Kirk would come out in support of Donald Trump to rally a little bit of the Turning Point USA crowd. It would be an incredible addition to this. And still, to this moment, we have yet to find an official to retweet something in the bracket. But to reach their congressional constituency in this bracket would be a huge thing. I actually think that Nikki Haley may come out and support Shapiro in this endeavor, which would be certainly incredible. I think that the larger this becomes on Twitter, the more you're actually going to see the bracket shift Trump. However, if Shapiro can get a handleable lead early on, I don't really know how much the president is going to be able to do. A lot of it is going to have to do with whether Shapiro campaigns in Wisconsin or not.
I think that there is definitely credence to that. I could just see a little bit of a revenge tour coming from Charlie Kirk and TPUSA being both 16th seeds and getting kicked out early on in the bracket. Maybe a little bit of a revenge tour. But if Turning Point were to come out of the woodwork for Donald Trump, Yaf would be waiting in the wings. Again, after Yaf was taken out early on, relatively, in this tournament, people had them going to the Final Four, or at least the Elite Eight, shaping up against possibly the Daily Wire or the Daily Caller, but ACC obviously took them down, one of the upsets that we talked in full about. Yaf is waiting in the wings. The only thing that they can do to even come close to a W is having one of those great speakers that they bring to college campuses win the right-wing bracket. So what do you think Yaf's influence could be on this tournament, because or on this final decision, because again, their performance was relatively underwhelming while their own name was on the bracket?
So Ali Bestucky is the one I'm thinking of. Different Yaf speakers and affiliates would have made a very profound impact on this bracket that honestly got left off because we didn't believe it was going to get this big, and we made it in about a half an hour. But that said, as far as what impact they would have had on this bracket, I mean, if people would have come to bat for Yaf could have taken down the Daily Wire. I mean, really. I mean, Yaf was number 2 seed because they have an incredible reach. They are 70% of the video content of conservative media on YouTube. So they actually outnumber conservative content that is watched presently on YouTube even more than Fox News. So this YAF coverage of different speakers, different clips of speakers pulled from YAF videos, as different commentators such as Crowder, Stuckey, and Shapiro use, they would have had a huge impact had they really gotten involved in the bracket. And part of that, I believe, is just that this is the first year of this bracket. And I think that as the years come forward, we will see a lot more of a diverse group of teams, as well as a very full level of engagement and interaction from teams in years to come.
So, Tony, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you just announced something pretty big. Loco Madness will be back next March 2021 with another bracket. Can I confirm that with you now?
You can definitely confirm that. As the host of the Electoral College Network, it is my privilege to announce the most important political sports news whenever it's available. And we did receive word this afternoon from lone conservative social media members, as well as the Division of College and Political Ethics Committees, that the Right Wing Madness tournament presented by the Lone Conservative will indeed be recurring in 2021, as we see the different members coming together again, as well as new entrants. And all I'm reporting is a rumor that there might be just 4 regions in the next bracket series.
So again, new names, new bracket, a bigger bracket that we can have possibly some more play-ins, some more different names and labels on these quadrants that we have now of the bracket, may be extended to 128 teams, which is what every single college football fan, I guess, would prefer for the playoff. 128, just throw all D1 football teams into the playoff. Why not? Anyway, we are going to be very, very excited to see how that shapes out moving forward. But I do want to ask you, Tony, what is next for the Electoral College Network? Are we going to see a lib bracket similar to that of what Comfortably Smug made? What is next for you guys over there, and how are you going to bring it to Lone Conservative?
Well, the Electoral College Network is specializing in bringing an interesting sports analysis of politics to play. As far as our coverage of the modern field, it is 2020. You can expect to see a lot of interesting and diverse content. I personally would not expect to see a liberal hack bracket or a shill bracket in the styles of Comfortably Smug or neoliberal, mostly because we were just filling a gap that no one had done yet. We're not in the interest of stealing really great ideas from other people. Competition can be done without, the full thievery. That said, you can expect some top-notch content for us, including another episode of the ECN, which should be going up late tonight or early tomorrow, covering this final match between President Donald Trump and Ben Shapiro, the Hebrew Hammer, the 1 seeds, duking it out UNC Kansas style.
All right, so to summarize what we've gone through today, some fantastic upsets happened throughout the bracket. We broke every single one of those down for you. Make sure to tune into the latest episode of The Elephant in the Room with myself, Bradley Devlin. Tony joins me to discuss where we were at that time, which I believe was heading into the Elite Eight for this bracket, and we are so glad that Tony was able to join us to talk about the number 1 seed coming out of the officials bracket and the number 1 seed coming out of the right-wing commentators bracket in Donald Trump and Ben Shapiro, duking it out for the finals, duking it out for the title of the best right-winger on right-wing Lone Conservatives Madness in 2020. And again, we want to confirm that there will be another bracket next year, expanded bracket with more subheadings, more quadrants, I guess, if you call it that way. Except they won't be quadrants because there'll be more than 4. But anyway, we're gonna bring this back to you, ECN. Keep your eyes on their latest episode dropping later this evening, later into the matchup between Donald Trump and Ben Shapiro. Tony, how about you leave us off with some final numbers as they are right now?
Currently at the 53rd minute, so just now getting near the end of, in social media, what we would call that first quarter, that first hour of the post. If we draw the numbers and pull up the analytics at this present time, what you're going to see, at least as these numbers load up, is Donald Trump beginning to catch Ben Shapiro. It is currently 52 to 47.7. Ben Shapiro is starting to lose his lead as the numbers draw closer to 50-50. So the match is heating up, folks. Your votes matter. Your votes count. And with just under 3,000 votes, it is going to be a squeaker, ladies and gentlemen. Stay up late, buy lots of Mountain Dew if there's any left, and get ready for the most intense match of the American political sports.
All right, we are going to be keeping you updated on all things Loco Madness Bracket 2020, as well as everything that's happening with the coronavirus and other developments in politics. If there are any other ones that are going on right now, I'm not aware of any of them. I mean, literally, it's just been bracket, and coronavirus. That's all I've been focused on. But if there are more things to show up, we will definitely be updating you on them over at loneconservative.com. If you are a college or high school student and you like to write, please get involved by clicking our Apply Now button. We will review your application, and hopefully you can become a member of the Lone Conservative team, where we get to do fun things like this, like me and Tony getting together on a Sunday afternoon, talking some right-wing madness. So hopefully you can join us there. And we are just getting an update over from Tony. Tony, update us on the situation going on over with Tony's laughing in my ear right now. I don't know if you're getting this audio, but Tony, give us an update as we speak.
It's just getting closer and closer. There's so many people that are jumping in to vote on this, and I can't help but laugh. If you do want to laugh, please go read some of the comments under these polls. The people who are taking this seriously truly do deserve to win a Darwin Award. I mean, goodness, people need some better things to do with their time, but those who are not taking it seriously, the memes and the jokes, this is quality Twitter entertainment. Guys, this website is free. And because this website is free, I mean, goodness, what a time to be alive. The polls are getting closer and closer. It is now 50.5 to 49.5, and it's jumping around constantly. So it's very, very much in the air, Brad.
Again, things developing rapidly. We will have all of the updates. Make sure to check out loneconservative.com. Check out the Elephant in the Room podcast. Make sure to keep an eye out for the Electoral College Network post on the wrap-up of the bracket after the Final Four, and of course, after this crazy championship round. I'm Bradley Devlin with the Elephant in the Room. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you soon.